I think builders have a more significant role to play in their clients' lives than the family doctor. Because if your home's making you sick, there's not much that any healthcare professional can do until you're out of that home.
G'day guys, welcome back to another episode in the shed. This one is seriously an absolute cracker. It's something that I must admit I don't know very much about, but it's something I do have a big interest in at the moment because I'm just trying to feed all my knowledge for the industry, but really become a lot better builder so I can deliver my clients a better product. So very, very grateful this afternoon because the special guest we have today has actually driven up the last 2.5 hours from where she lives. She's really excited to be here. So I'd like to give a big warm welcome to Zara D'Cotta, the Healthy Home. How are you?
Great, Wayne. Very excited to be here at your shed. Thank you for having me.
So, people have probably pricked their ears up. They're wondering what you are and what you're all about. So, can you tell us give us your business spiel you're selling?
Yeah, so my area of specialty is healthy home design and building materials. I'm a building biology new build consultant, and my mission really is to empower homeowners and building industry professionals to ensure that the homes that they design and build are not only better for the environment, but they're actually going to support their own wellbeing as well.
Yeah, and look, I think this is really, really important, especially at the moment. Like there's all these new changes coming into the NCC, and like, man, the amount of builders I talk to or people in the industry I talk to, and they're like, what? I haven't heard anything about this. Like, and it's literally been coming in slowly. And like, you probably know the date better than me, but isn't it like October this year? It's
October 1, and the thing that staggers me is that there was a study carried out in 2015 by the University of Tasmania, the scoping study into condensation in residential buildings. It was published in 2016, and over the last couple of years, every building industry professional I've asked if they've seen it or heard about it has not heard about it, and it staggers me that we've had 7 years to be talking through the findings and getting ready for the changes that are coming this year, but it just doesn't seem to have been filtered down to the people that needed to see it.
Look, I think it's really, really important, and like I said at the beginning, like I've got to admit, I don't know a lot about this. I've definitely got an interest in it. It blows my mind just from the little bit that I know how a lot of our industry associations and bodies are fighting to not bring these changes in. And again, like if you listen to my podcast, you know, like everything's driven by the volume builders, and like if they bring these changes, well, when they bring these changes in, it is going to affect them a lot because they're going to have to really up their quality control.
Yep. I heard a really interesting story the other day about a builder whose sister's building a home in Victoria, and they've asked for them to use a vapor permeable membrane that they're happy to pay extra for, and they said that they wouldn't do it because they're not required to until October 1, and the regional sales manager for this volume builder didn't know what a vapor permeable membrane was, so the changes are a few months away and they still don't know what they need to do in order to meet the requirements.
There's nothing, like I went to a Master Builders Queensland seminar a few weeks ago because they promoted that their talk was all about the changes coming in the NCC with all the disabled bathrooms and the tiling and waterproofing, and I was hoping they were going to touch on this, and like they breezed over the top of it. Like I did not learn a thing. It's
so interesting that you say that because I've had it's been very interesting coming into this industry with fresh eyes. I've been doing some presentations for building industry professionals, and the responses I've received, like some of the organisations have been so open and brilliant and keen for their members to hear the information they have to share, and others worried about maybe their builder members egos being hurt by like what might I have to share that they don't already know.
Like, can we dive into it? Like what is it? Like what for people that are listening and watching, like what are we talking about?
So in terms of my area of focus, which is building biology, it is the study of the relationship between the built environment and the health of the human and our environment, and the goal is for each of these three things to be in harmony. And it was started in Germany in the 1970s, and there was a group of professionals that noticed that after World War II, with the move to faster methods of construction and synthetic materials, they noticed a significant decline in the health of the population. So building biology is unique in its focus on the health impacts of the building on the human, and it takes into consideration things like air quality. So, the health impacts of building materials, strategies to prevent condensation and mold, and then light quality, water quality, and then also looks at electromagnetic radiation in the built environment.
Man, like that.
It is a lot.
It's a lot. And look, it's like I've never been taught any of that as a builder. Like we get taught to build the frame and put the sarking on and install the windows and throw the roof on and put the plasterboard on. And like, to be honest, the thing that has actually I guess encouraged my learning into this is a lot of the stuff I see on social media from builders that are starting to learn a lot about this.
And can I just say, I have to take my hat off to you, because you epitomise the mindset that is needed for the industry to get out of the dinosaur age to where it needs to get to in order for every home that is built in Australia to support the well-being of the human. The fact that you've been in the industry for decades and that you're willing...
No, I don't. Come on, I'm not that old. I have been in it for 27 years.
No, but the fact that you're so interested and like willing to have a chat to me, it would be so easy for you to go, well, like, what would you know? Like, you're a girl that's never built a house. So I really have to take my hat off to you for that.
No, cheers. Look, all this stuff really interests me. And I think one thing that is broken, not just in our industry, but I guess in society, is taking ownership. And I've just recently had a conversation with someone about this, and like it was just butting heads and going around in circles. Like there was no ownership. Like you have to take ownership of everything. And I feel our industry is just, like we touched about this before we got on, like there is so, like, managing people is the hardest job. And within our industry, like, you've got so many opinions and so many personalities and so many, like, someone thinks they've got the right information over here and then someone over here thinks they've got the right information. And then you're just like, where do I go? How do I take it all in? And I honestly feel like most of our industry just throws their hands in the air. Like, well, stuff it. This is what we have to build. This is a minimum standard. That's all we're doing.
I can understand, because it's like, well, who's the authority on, like, I was looking at, updating some content and research in line with the changes to the NCC and trying to make sense of, what should the moisture content of timber framing be before the walls are sealed so that you don't seal moisture into the wall cavity. And there's somewhere it says 12%, somewhere else says it's 14%, somewhere else says 18%. It's like, well,
what is it?
Who's the authority on this? Like, what guidelines are builders supposed to follow to ensure that they don't get themselves in trouble?
What is it meant to be?
It depends whose advice you follow.
Yeah.
So if you want to go on the safer side of things, aim for below 14, below 12%.
Yeah. 10. I've heard 10 to 12 is acceptable, but again,
and it depends on. Also, it's going to depend on the climate, the humidity levels.
Yeah. And so again, this is something that I've picked up from an American builder I follow on Instagram.
Yeah.
And I've never considered it. And like I remember back, like obviously 2010, 11, we had the floods, and then what it was 13, we had more floods. Like we're built in some really wet times, and like I never considered it. Like I remember thinking to myself, oh, by the time we get to gyprock stage, it'll be dried out, but there was still moisture in timber.
Yeah.
And like something else I've only just learned recently is with the plasterboard, like your linings as well. Like the bare plasterboard sucks moisture in. Like so, if it's sitting for a reasonable period between when the walls get sheeted and the paint goes on, like it can hold moisture in the board, and then the paint goes on, and the paint holds it in there, and then like reading into the painting specifications, like you actually can't put paint onto a board that's got a certain moisture level. So there's so much to unpack.
Yeah, there's heaps.
Sorry to interrupt, guys, but we've got to thank our sponsors, because without them, we can't keep delivering you this incredible podcast. So massive shout out to DPS Constructions, Quotees, Live Life Build, and 44 Gallon Films. Make sure you go and check those guys out, support them so that we can keep delivering you this incredible podcast. So what got you interested in this? Like, what's your story?
Yeah, so it's 6 years of massive life curveballs that were thrown at me that led to my studies in healthy home design and building materials. So starting with breast cancer 10 years ago, and that led to a whole heap of lifestyle changes, getting rid of toxic personal care and cleaning products. And I think the thing is, before that, I'd thought that someone's putting regulations and checks in place to make sure that what we buy from the supermarket is safe for us.
Yeah.
And so I was like, right, I've learned all that I needed to learn. And then after my melanoma diagnosis, I lost a very close friend to cancer around the same time. And even though my cancers had never made me sick, I had about 20 plus symptoms that no doctor could pinpoint. And I went from doctor to doctor trying to get a diagnosis, and no one could explain it. And I was fortunate to find an environmentally aware naturopath who did the longest hour-and-a-half health history anyone has ever done.
Yeah.
And realised that I'm one of the 1 in 4 people that's genetically susceptible to mould. So I had a building biologist come and assess my house and realised that I was getting heart palpitations in my living room. I'm like, why am I getting them in my living room and nowhere else? And my neighbour's Wi-Fi router on the other side of the wall, there was Wi-Fi levels off the charts in my living room. And because I'd been through 6 weeks of radiotherapy, I'd become really sensitive. So honestly, it was like no one's ever talked about any of this stuff. It was a lot to take in, but ultimately been really empowering because there's actually, some of it's quite complex in terms of, making the built environment healthier, but there's also really simple things that you can do, people can do in their own homes and that builders can do that will make a significant impact to the health of the people that live in the home.
Like, honestly, I would never think of stuff like that. Like,
No,
you don't,
well,
like everyone, like, seriously, some of the homes we build are quite big homes. Like, people want Wi-Fi boosters everywhere. Like, everyone's all they're considering is they want good internet.
And why wouldn't you wouldn't question it unless anyone's ever given you a reason that you should.
Yeah. So what's the bad side of it? Like, obviously mold's very bad. Like, that's and look, it blows me away. Like, we do a lot of renovations.
Yeah.
And this is probably the actual thing that made me start to get interested in this, because we would be doing demolition during renovations, and you would pull wall linings off and ceiling lines off, and there would be mold all over the timber and mold all over the gyprock and mold underneath the floor, and timber would be wet. And so it's something, like, I've always said to my team now, like, we have to learn from this. Like, when we're pulling stuff apart, like, we got to learn, like, what's this happening? Is it getting moisture in from somewhere? Is it condensation? Has it got no ventilation? But like, when it comes to things like your, I don't know, whatever they're called, like your rays from your Wi-Fi,
your meter box, where the fridge is placed, if there's power lines or phone towers nearby, all things that should be factored into how a home is designed and materials that are used to. It's not saying we should do away with the wonders of modern technology, but there are safer ways that we can use it.
So what did you, like, again, you've been through a bit of a hard trot with your cancer and melanoma and stuff, but like, what come out of that when you got that person out to your house and you started figuring these things out?
He said that house wasn't going to be the best for me long term. He said I'd be better. I was in Melbourne. He said I'd be better living somewhere warmer. So that planted the seed for me to go and live the dream in northern New South Wales. But I decided to go to Sydney first. I wanted to be by the ocean. I had lots of friends there, and I spent 4 years. I can't even tell you how many houses I stayed in that 4 years trying to find a building that wasn't water damaged. I got more sick when I went to Sydney, went back to Melbourne for 6 months to live with a family member. That building was water damaged, and I eventually decided that I was going to come and live in northern New South Wales. And after 6 weeks of looking up here and seeing that there was poor ventilation, lack of sunlight, I decided that moving into a home that had just finished being built was going to be the key to getting my health back on track. And so I moved into this house 3 weeks after the builder had handed over the key, so it would have been locked up. And I woke up after my first night in this new home, and my eyes were stinging so intensely I had to leave the house while I ventilated it. And I had a skin rash for the first few months and bouts of nausea. And at that point, I was really disillusioned, and I decided that I needed to learn all I could about the health impacts of the building materials and how homes are designed, so that I can one day build my own home and do whatever I can to help be part of the movement for change in the meantime. So that led to my studies in building biology. Yeah. So what's involved in that? Like, because I've never heard of a building biologist. Like, I don't. Yeah, a lot of people haven't. So my area of focus is healthy home design and building materials, so new builds. So I've spent a lot of time studying the health and environmental impacts of building materials. So for each material that I assess, I rate them against 9 different health and environmental criteria to help guide clients towards decisions that are going to be choose materials that are least mold susceptible, and consider other health impacts as well. And then I also look at the way a home is designed, and a key part of that is assessing a site for potential health hazards and external health hazards, and making sure those factors are taken into consideration in the design. And then looking at construction stage practices to make sure the indoor air quality is as good as it can be when the occupants move into the home. So can you give us some examples of I guess firstly, what stage should you get involved? The earlier on, the better. Yeah. Yeah. And then what are you looking for? It's in a site assessment. Yeah. So in a site assessment, looking at the topography of the site to make sure the foundation is right for the site. So often there are so many homes that are built at the bottom of the hill or into the hill on a slab. So they've got rising damp issues. Looking for any nearby sources of EMF. So power lines. So I had a client who they had their renovation plans done and they realised that their bedrooms were going to be really close to power lines. And there's links to childhood leukemia and all sorts of other health issues. So they moved the bedrooms to the other side of the house.
So what's EMF stand for?
Electromagnetic fields. So any source of where electrical current's flowing could be electrical appliances, wiring, and then there's obviously wireless radiation, so things like phone towers and
transformers.
Yeah, so making sure that areas of prolonged exposure are a safe distance away from those sources.
Yeah.
What else? Nearby sources of air pollution. So, are there golf courses? Are there nearby sources of pesticide drift or traffic pollution that can be factored into the designs to minimise the amount of pollution coming into the home?
Yeah. Yeah. Look, it's amazing stuff. And it's definitely stuff that you do not think about.
No.
And obviously there is current moving through your home every second of every day.
Yeah. And I think this is a really important message for, like, I see a lot of, in the passive house space, I'm a huge advocate for the importance of having those skills that passive house teaches you in a home build, but saying, we design healthy homes or we build healthy homes because condensation management strategies are in place. But I think that without having explored the other ways, many other ways the home environment can impact a person's health, that can be misleading because it's like, well, you've got your passive house strategies in place, but if there's a phone tower within 400 metres that hasn't been taken into consideration, or, you haven't considered, health impacts of some of the materials, the client could potentially still be at risk, and you've told them that you built them a healthy home.
So what are you looking for with materials? Like you mentioned before we started recording, you moved into a home and you started having some issues. So building materials typically have really high levels of formaldehyde. So I suspect that's what I was having issues from. So carpets, engineered wood products, high levels of VOCs in paints. There's even natural materials like granite can have radon gas, which is the second leading cause of lung cancer globally. Sure.
But there was, after Hurricane Katrina happened, there was... the victims were given those FEMA trailers, and there's images of like thousands of FEMA trailers that they had to leave because the high levels of formaldehyde from the materials that led to like the victims had nosebleeds, respiratory issues. Formaldehyde's a carcinogen.
I only found this out from actually one of our Elevate members is from... can't remember off the top of my head. He's overseas, and there is lots of countries overseas that have banned formaldehyde, and yet it's in our wood products.
Australia's so far behind the rest of the world. Like, you think in Germany, they've 50 years ago they started cluing on to the health impacts of new builds, and here it's one of
those things, but you don't know what you don't know.
No.
Like, I've been handling and installing particle board floors for like 20 years of my time in the industry, we still do, like 27 years. We've made a call now, like we're going to use engineered plied products and stuff, but like it really opened up my eyes. And it's funny you say this, like we're branching out into some other areas of the industry, which I'm not going to give away yet, but there's all these new companies coming into this sort of area where we're going to get involved, and they're marketing themselves as like these healthy home specialists. And I was listening to some other podcasts with some of these companies on, and they're talking about, it's because we use this and it's because we use that. And one of them brought up about all the joinery materials that they used in the kitchens and vanities and things. And so I asked my cabinet maker about it, and he's like, none of the stuff we use has any of those glues in it. And if they're using a good Australian brand, it's not an issue. The only time you're going to have an issue is if you're importing really cheap stuff from China. And so it's funny because everyone's trying to promote.
There is so much greenwashing. And I actually feel really sorry for builders that are trying to do the right thing by their clients. Like I've had builders that are clients that have been, using a certain paint product and promoting it on their social media channels because it's healthier. And then they've realised that actually it's not actually what it claims to be.
Yeah. It's, and look at it, like for a builder, and I'm sure this will resonate with other builders and tradies, like it's almost impossible for us to know everything. There is so much to know.
I feel so much. I have so much respect for builders and the work that you do and the level of detail you're required to be across. That's why I spend a lot of my time pouring through safety data sheets, reaching out to manufacturers, trying to find what independent studies say so that builders aren't having to go through all this themselves. It's just like, here's what you need to know.
Yeah, and look, I think it ties in, like in Elevate, like we teach our members, you've got to, like, you're not just a builder. You've got to find where your passion, like what path do you want to take your direction on? And I think, like with us, we've definitely seen a change in our clients and even a change in the contractors and employees we have, because like my wife and I are really big on now, like being a lot more sustainable. Like we recycle so many materials, we repurpose them. We're huge on reducing waste, and we are having conversations with a lot of our suppliers now about, like, is it sustainably sourced? Is it 100% recyclable at its end use? And so we're attracting those types of clients. I think a big part of why our industry struggles with a lot of this stuff is because it's so focused on the bottom line. And because everyone's so focused on the bottom line, they're taking whatever products and whatever labour and whatever they can find, rather than educating themselves on what they're passionate about and finding clients that want that. Yeah. Because I'm sure there'd be thousands of clients out there that want what you talk about.
Oh, I get people reaching out to me on social media begging. They're like, where do we find a builder that will build a healthy home for us? Yeah. Yeah.
So is it something that, and again, forgive me for my, like, I don't know a lot about this, but I would imagine if they got you in early and were advised on the right products to use, it wouldn't cost that much different, I'm assuming. Like, I'm sure you can buy a great carpet that hasn't got any issues with it at the same price you can as a carpet that's full of stuff.
Unfortunately, the healthier materials do tend to be more expensive, but I have clients that have had very modest budgets that haven't necessarily got all their ideal healthy materials, but they've achieved a lot through the way their home is designed. So they've significantly reduced their condensation mold risk, they've reduced their EMF exposure, and then they've been really smart about the way they've invested their money on materials. So, you know, investing money in their insulation, really good insulation, focusing on, materials with a higher surface area like walls and floor finishes. So yeah, I think that is also a really important message to get across, is that you can achieve a lot just by awareness and implementing certain strategies in the design stage.
And making all your selections very early, like before you go to contract.
Yeah. Like, I often hear builders say, oh, but this one's so expensive, clients aren't going to go for that. And I see clients that are educated that actually go for the better quality options. And
it's all education.
I think you shouldn't be so quick to discount what the client's willing to spend money on.
And I think builders are doing themselves out of work there, like, because they're making a decision without educating the client.
And also, how in 10 years' time do they want to be able to look back at the homes they built and be like, yep, I know that those walls are still going to be intact, that home isn't going to have to be renovated or knocked down. Like, how much better are they going to feel about that?
Yeah. Well, let's go back to electrical. How do you solve it? Like, how do you solve the problem?
So working with an EMF technician early on is a good idea. So getting an assessment, getting them to come and assess what the levels are like at the site, and then designing the home so that appliances that emit high levels of EMF, like your fridge, your washing machine, your meter box, are not sharing walls with the bed head or an office where you're spending significant amounts of time. And then there's strategies that you can implement with the way the home is wired, where solar panels are placed, having the option of hardwired internet so that if the family wants to go down that path, they can.
Yeah, and look, we've actually done one job, actually it's probably in close to 2 years now, 18 months, that the client had listened to one of Amelia, the Undercover Architects, my business partner's podcast, about the electrical currents and those types of things. Yep. So we, it was the first time it ever been brought to my attention, and so we put all the internet in a cupboard away from the bedrooms. Yep. We put switches on things so she could turn the power off to areas.
Demand switch. It's actually amazing that, like, I've been into that many homes where there's been someone in the family that has had migraines or insomnia, and in each scenario that person has been the one in the house either sleeping next to the Wi-Fi router or the Wi-Fi router's next to the desktop. So I think there are many more people than we realise that are not feeling their best day to day because they just think that that's the way it is, but
it's safe. It's in my house. So
but something is like I had a client who had twin girls that were just under 1 year old, sleeping in separate rooms, but they both had baby monitors at the end of their cots, and they weren't sleeping very well. And I had a meter, and the Wi-Fi, the radio frequency radiation levels at the cots were the same as at their Wi-Fi router. So she turned the baby monitors off that night, and she messaged me 2 days later, and she said, "Zara, my girls have slept soundly for the last 2 nights. They slept to 8 a.m. this morning." So like, that's just such a simple change that has made such a big difference to those 2 baby girls.
Yeah. So is that part of what you do, or is that another specialist that deals with the currents?
An EMF testing technician would deal with that.
Yeah.
I can certainly advise on strategies that you can implement in the design, and I can look at, potential nearby sources. But if you wanting tailored advice specific to that project, then an EMF testing technician.
Yeah. All right. So that signs off on electrical. This is I'll be certified after this podcast. So materials.
Yep.
So you mentioned, obviously a lot of wood products, it's to do with the glues in them.
Yeah, and the finishes.
Yeah. So and like carpets, the same. Is it the same because of the glues in them?
Yeah, I mean carpet's synthetic, but to be honest, carpets, even if you have natural textures, are terrible for indoor air quality because of the amount of dust, mold, pesticides, dirt that it harbours that you can never really clean properly. And if it gets wet and it's not dried out within 24 to 48 hours, it gets pulled out and it goes into landfill. So carpet's not really great from an environmental point of view either.
Yeah. And look, again, until I heard that about the particle board sort of scenario, like you probably know, like it takes years, doesn't it? Is it 3 years for it to leach out or something?
Into landfill?
No, like it went. So when you
to off gas.
Yeah, off gas.
That's so. Even the home that I live in now, it was nearly 4 years ago that I moved in. It's still off gassing, and in the summer when it's more humid and it's hot, that's accelerating the off gassing. So
yeah, so it's literally
still being exposed to carcinogens
into
and
your airspace that you're living in,
and it gets absorbed through the skin, your eyes, it goes into your bloodstream, your organs. So it's no wonder so many people have so many health problems.
Look, it's quite funny because like my wife and I are on this path now where like we've recently purchased a big farm, and like even around home here we've built a huge veggie garden, and we're becoming a lot more sustainable. We want to produce our own meat. We've got a heap of chooks and all those types of things, and we've been really focused on the amount of chemicals that are in the foods that we eat. And now I'm sitting here listening to you and I'm thinking, holy shit, like it's not just the food we eat, it's in everything we friggin' live in.
No, and it can be overwhelming, and a message I really always try and reinforce is that it's about balance, not perfection, and to let go of the idea that you're going to build a home that's going to have no chemicals whatsoever. It's about reducing the toxic load as much as you can.
Yeah. So, all right, that's electrical, that's some materials. And the insulation. So can we talk about insulation? So I think this is a huge can of worms because I know from my experience with homeowners and designers, architects and energy efficient consultants, they just want to put insulation in. Like they think it's improving the house, and like it's so much more than that. Like even the way the insulation is installed makes a massive difference.
Yeah.
But then you're saying that even what the insulation's made out of is affecting houses as well.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. How it performs in response to moisture.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So is the insulation tying with the mold and the condensation things? Like I don't know a lot about how this condensation works. And
so so moisture needs to be able to migrate from the inside to the outside of the home without condensing in the wall cavity, and vice versa, because even if you're not in a humid climate, humans are breathing, cooking, bathing, sweating, and contributing significant amounts of moisture to the indoor environment each day. And if you've got a material like fiberglass, think of what happens to that when you dunk it in a bucket of water.
Yeah.
It just acts as a sponge for
moisture. Because unless you have these conversations that we're having now, like you don't even think of it. Like and well, I guess the other part of that is I wouldn't have thought that it would travel through the paint and through the plasterboard and into the cavity and then out to the outside.
Yeah. So when I'm assessing building materials, I look at, is it naturally occurring? Is it ecologically compatible? But then is it vapor permeable? So will water vapor be able to pass through the material? Is it hygroscopic? So a material that is hygroscopic helps regulate humidity. So it will absorb moisture when humidity is high, and then it will release humidity into the environment when the humidity levels drop. So timber is an amazing material in terms of its hygroscopic properties. Will it contribute to thermal bridging, which poses a condensation mold risk? And then also, will it impact the electroclimate? So metal acts as an antenna for electromagnetic fields, so it can exacerbate the EMF levels inside the home. And then will the material off gas, and then give it a rating for the overall health impact, and then give it a rating out of 39. So that, and I find myself having so many debates with builders and about certain materials and trying to find black or white. Is this material good or bad? But so often there's rarely a perfect choice, and it's really about balancing the client values and their budget, context.
It's all about making people aware, isn't it?
Yeah.
And so they can make their own decision.
Yeah.
So and then with the insulation, we spoke a little bit off air. There's so much more to it, isn't it? People just think you shove it in a cavity, but then it's got a lot to do with the types of sarking and membranes you're putting on the outside, and then the type of cladding you're using.
Yeah.
There's a lot to it.
Is it going to slump under its own weight? Is it going to lose its effectiveness over time?
That's something else I learnt by doing renovations. The amount of times you pull plasterboard off a wall and the home has been insulated, but over time it's just all, deteriorated and fallen down, and half the cavity's got nothing in it anymore. Yeah. I think this has just got to be a conversation. It's just got to keep being had. It is, because
as you there is so much to it, and it's you just got to start with whichever part of it you feel most drawn to. And this is, I say to the builders I work with, Rome wasn't built in a day. What are some changes that you can implement? What are the easy wins that you can implement within your businesses in the next 3 months? I had a builder and his architect recently go through my mastermind. They said they're going to be implementing what they learned over the next 10 years.
Yeah. Tell us a little bit about your mastermind. What's involved there?
So it's a 10-week program that I run for building industry professionals, and it's the Healthy Building Materials Mastermind. So we deep dive into the how I've rated interior and exterior materials against the 9 criteria. There's also interviews with environmental health experts, so they get to hear the perspectives of, mold testing technicians, EMF technicians. Then we have fortnightly calls on Zoom, so we discuss the learnings, and it's a really awesome community that's been created off the back of that. So I had 2 events in the Northern Rivers last year. So I don't know when the next one will be, but it's just become an awesome, you and Amelia have created, like minds supporting each other's
It's the only way to learn, bounce ideas off each other. Just learn. It's all about, my thing is, knowledge is growth. You've got to have the experience, you got to get the knowledge, you got to keep growing.
And I love it because they've become my greatest teachers and allies in this industry as well.
Are you finding more and more people are wanting to know more about this? Who's coming to you? Is it builders or is it homeowners?
Initially, it was homeowners. I set out to help homeowners, and to be honest, I nearly didn't, because I was absolutely terrified of what people in the building industry would think. But I had building industry professionals wanting to do that residential course. So an architect gave me a nudge and said, I think you should do this for building industry professionals. And so I started that 2 years ago, and I've actually been so impressed with builders. I would say 80 to 85% of the participants have been builders, and that's very much my focus at the moment with all the changes that are happening this year, and updating my own research in terms of mold susceptibility of materials and things that they need to be aware of.
So from what I'm hearing, that there's no set levels. There's no set levels for moisture in the timber and the plasterboard. Everyone's sort of got their own opinion on things.
No, there are incredible businesses out there offering guidance. But there's no consistency. Yeah. But again, it does come down to also the humidity levels at the particular site, but.
Because to me, it sounds like it's just another step. We just have to add these steps in. So, as an example, the company we use to lay our timber floors, they won't lay the timber floor if the timbers are not at the correct moisture content. So, a lot of the time, they'll come to we'll have the job scheduled in. They'll send their rep out the day before. He'll do a moisture test.
Do they test the concrete?
They test the concrete and they test the timber. So they might come out the day before and go, oh no, there's too much humidity here, we can't lay it. Yeah. Or the morning they come out, they might say, oh no, look, the moisture levels aren't correct. But they're the only ones that I know of in our process that are checking moisture, but it sounds to me like it should be getting done at framing stage.
Yep.
It should be getting done before plasterboard gets put on. It
Yep.
possibly should be getting done before painting.
Yep, and right at the beginning of the build process, I had a client that her renovation became so stressful that she's actually moved interstate while it happens because she got so sick of asking the builder to protect the materials from moisture, to protect the exposed wall cavity from the rain.
Yeah.
So planning those things at the beginning of the build process. Where are the materials going to be stored so they don't get exposed to moisture?
So you just said then, do they check the concrete? And just like I was only made aware of this again last couple of months. Like a concrete slab, and you'll be able to correct me on this, but a concrete slab takes is it 6 months or something to get to a point where it's actually a bit neutral?
It depends on the thickness. It can be 6 to 9 months, and construction timeframes typically don't allow to that. And that then contributes to elevated humidity levels within the home. So that's actually a significant source of condensation mold-related problems in new builds. So as builders that have been through the
volume builders are smashing houses up in 10, 12 weeks.
Yeah. So you can get a dehumidifier to help after the first run, more than 28 days after the slab's been laid, to help dry out the timber and dry out the slab.
So again, that's the moisture's coming through whatever floor coverings. So I guess if it's carpet, that moisture's going straight into the carpet.
Yeah, I suspect that's what's the home that I'm living in now. I suspect the vinyl floors are being laid over concrete that was not really cured.
Yeah, seriously, this is just stuff that you don't, we're not taught. No one's talking about this. We just and obviously everything's push. Like clients want to be in and they're paying interest payments and they're paying bills and everything's just rush.
Yeah,
we're really causing ourselves harm.
It's quite frightening how we've arrived at this point.
Yeah,
it's we've really lost our way in terms of how homes should be built, and we all need to link arms to walk each other home, find our way home to how homes should be built.
Yeah. So this, seriously, it's blowing my mind because I don't. It's like I said, we've done homework and we're very passionate about the food we eat and the chemicals that we're injecting into our putting in our bodies. But we're literally sucking these same chemicals in by laying in our beds and sleeping in at night and walking around our homes.
That was for me after the first 2 years after my breast cancer diagnosis. I've made all the changes I need to change. I didn't. It didn't occur to me that anything in my home could make me sick. Yeah,
but is that I'm trying to figure out what was the moment for you? Was it because you must have been aware of something to get that specialist in to do that report for you.
Yeah, it was the long list of symptoms that I had, and the heart palpitations in my living room, that led me to go to the naturopath that they told me to get the building biologist to assess my house. Yeah. Well,
again, you wouldn't think you'd be finding out about your house from going to a naturopath.
No, she changed my life in so many ways.
Yeah, well, it's it's incredible. But seriously, I'm sitting here blown away because all I can think about is
it's lots of cans of worms have just been opened every day.
Yeah, but all I'm thinking about is what do I need to learn to be able to bring this to the attention of my clients and make them aware of it? Because I take my job really seriously, and I think as a builder, we need to sort of take some accountability for this type of stuff. And it's not like the old days where you just wipe your hands of things I didn't know. It's in this day and age with social media and the internet and people like yourselves and the amount of resources we have out there, you really have to go and educate yourself on this type of thing.
Yep.
And you do have to go through a few cans of worms, and I think we talked about before, you need to sort of learn a bit from everywhere, don't you? And then sort of, I guess, make your own decisions on what suits you and your business model and the types of clients you're working for, and all those types of things. So you mentioned then that you can put a dehumidifier in. So is that during construction, is that something that will help?
Once the walls are sealed, the windows are in, the roof's on. That can definitely help. I went to Stuart Sholton when he was doing the passive house in Ballina, and oh my gosh, there'd been so much rain and that house was bone dry. I was doing a happy dance for that homeowner. It was amazing.
So did you do a bit of work with Stu?
Yeah, I've been to visit him on site and interviewed him. He's been an amazing wealth of knowledge for me.
Yeah, he's fantastic. He's one of our Elevate members. He's putting a lot of time into improving his business.
Yeah.
But yeah, when it comes to that side of things, he's very, very passionate about it.
He is, and seeing him, and this is something that I realised, he was showing me the window details on site, and he was just saying how much he loves that. Like, he finds it quite meditative, like doing the details, and I was like, wow, you really do have to be so passionate about your craft and the attention to detail, and yeah, it was very inspiring to see.
That's I'm excited. I've got him coming up in a couple of weeks, and he's going to do a demonstration for my team and show us how to do all the details.
Oh, amazing. I think, there's a lot of builders that could benefit from learning from Stuart.
Yeah. Oh, look, I'm so passionate about all of it now, and look, I can't do it on my own, so I'm very big on getting my team involved. So like, we're now doing regular, quite lengthy team meetings. So like,
Brilliant.
We've done them with engineers, we've done them with all sorts of things, but I've hit Stu up to come up and actually come to one of our projects because I'm starting to learn a lot more about all the ProClimber wraps and those types of things. And so it's funny because I have these toolbox meetings on site, and I talk to my boys, and like my supervisor and a couple of my carpenters are like, they're like me, they're a bit old school, and we'll just talk. You just like, you throw your frame up, you throw your sarking on, you put your windows in, and you throw your cladding on. And so look, they still have a bit of a giggle every now and then, and I think a lot of them think that I'm full of shit, and what am I like? Well, not full of shit, but like, oh, what are you doing? Like, you're trying to change the world, all this type of stuff.
Oh, they're so lucky they've got you bringing them this knowledge that they're not having to go out and, well, I hope they still do, proactively try and go and find a bit themselves. But yeah,
they're all on board with things. Like, they appreciate that I'm getting them involved and teaching them new things. But that's what I was touching on earlier. Like, there's so many different personalities. There's so many people. Like, if you got someone that's been in the industry for 40 years and they've just always done something a certain way, it can be quite difficult to explain to them, like, this is what actually needs to be done. Like,
and something else I've realised is there are some people, and you be one of them and I'm one of them, are naturally curious and love learning and love filling our brains with more information. But for some people, that's not everyone's cup of tea. So how do you get around that when actually every person in the building industry needs to learn a lot more than they already know currently? Yeah,
look, I've definitely learnt showing is a lot better than trying to talk. So that's why I do all the videos I do, and I'm always talking about things. And like Shay does a video, we go to site and we'll sort of talk through some scenarios and that type of thing, because I think you've got to be able to demonstrate to people like the differences. And I know our building business is very successful because we clearly demonstrate the difference between us and a volume builder and the quality we do. And I actually, like, most of our work now comes from people following us on social media. And even though we're not doing things like a lot of what you're talking about now, just the fact that people see us putting it out there, that we're learning and we're trying this new stuff and we're doing our homework, attracts better clients.
Yeah, and you're so visible. I think that not enough builders are visible on their social media profiles.
Oh, 100%. And look, it's like I was getting told by our we had a marketing lady at the time and my wife, like, you need to talk about this stuff. You need to put, like, I didn't have social media for the first 4 to 6 years it existed. Like, I hated it. Like, I am old school. Like, I believe I hate what social media is doing to public and, like, especially kids. Like, no face-to-face communication.
Yeah.
I think it's real. Like, a lot of people have lost personal skills, but I love the power it has for business.
It's amazing for business.
Yeah, and you can really, like, everybody in the world has their opportunity to put forward what they believe in, what they're doing, how they're doing it. Like, it's incredible.
Yeah.
And so you do a lot on socials, don't you? I've seen a lot of your videos.
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I have put a lot of time into that.
So where can people find you?
Zara D'Cotta, or one word, _, The Healthy Home.
Yeah, so we'll put some links up to stuff
or my
as well.
website might be easiest, thehealthyhome.com.au. That's got my Instagram link.
Yeah. No, well, look, I think it's so where do you want this to go? Like, what's your dream with what you're doing? Like,
what I've really had to do this year is really work out on, like, it's just me in my business, where can I have the most impact? And I really feel like it is working with the building industry professionals that are keen to drive the change. So beyond the Healthy Building Materials Mastermind, I've created what's called the Healthy Home Building Blueprint. So something I've really tried to do, and I really see a need to do, is demystify and simplify the process of building a healthy home. So I was doing, like, my design brief for a client got to 60 pages. I'm like, this is too much for an architect or a building. I mean, the architect loved it, but I distilled it down into a checklist. I'm like, right, this needs to be site assessment stage checklist, design checklist, checklist, EMF checklist, construction stage checklist, lighting checklist. Like I would love in time to think that every home in Australia would be built with principles of building science and building biology.
So
following a process like the one that I've created.
Yeah. Because like you just said building science then.
Yeah.
And like I heard the phrase building science probably for the first time 18 months ago or something, and I actually think it was from Stuart.
Yeah.
And it got me interested straight away. And like I've seen, like I'm sure a lot of my listeners followed Sean, the Tassie Builders blog.
Sean's a legend. He's doing my mastermind at the moment.
Yeah, no, I love him. He puts out really good content, and I love his passion for learning. I remember him sharing a post, and it was about a book for building science.
Joseph Stieber, his
think it was,
control for buildings.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So like, there's a lot of people out there that are on the right journey and trying hard to improve the industry. So I think it's really, really good. Like it's time for change.
It is, and it's so great that we're all talking to each other, because it is. You know, building science alone is such a huge, complex beast, and so is building biology. So it really is about everyone that's kind of on this path sharing knowledge and having the conversations to find the solutions.
Yeah, I'm trying to take all this in because we've talked about a lot of stuff that is definitely news to me, and it's definitely stuff I want to do more homework on and educate my team on. But ultimately, a lot of this coming back to like air quality?
Yep. In new builds, definitely a huge focus is the indoor air quality.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, because the building materials impact air quality, the design impacts air quality, EMFs impact air quality.
How does the design affect air quality? Like natural ventilation or like...
Yeah, ventilation, foundations, suitable for site. Yeah, where windows and doors are placed.
Yeah.
Then there's lighting, making sure that you're not choosing lighting that disrupts people's circadian rhythm.
We have our pack process now. I'm really heavily involved in design stage. So my team, like my supervisor's incredible. He runs the jobs and the teams, and I spend a lot of my time now going to the design meetings with the architects, designers and the homeowners, and it's made me a lot better builder because I understand now, especially with the quality people we're working with, the placement of windows and doors, and I'm really learning why they orientate things a certain way and all this type of thing. But you've just given me a whole other view on it, because I've been looking at it and learning about it from like shading and natural light, but it's actually got a lot to do with the airflow through the house and like ventilation.
I did a design brief for a development project. It was a lot of homes that are being built and was already in the design stage, and I said to the architect, do you know which direction the prevailing winds come from? And this, I'm not to criticise, but they didn't know. And I'm like, well, how have you determined like how the houses, where the openings are to maximise opportunities for ventilation? And
so that, like, is that because it's going to constantly be refreshing the air in the house, and like if there is harmful gases in there, they're going to get flushed out? Like what?
Yes, in summertime, if it's in a hot Queensland climate, you want to be making sure that the occupants are benefiting from the cooling summer breezes.
Yeah. No, look at man. Like seriously, I'm going to have to sign up to your course and learn more about this stuff. It's very interesting. I definitely see. It seems to be an awakening experience of sorts, I think, for the people that go through it. Yeah. Yeah. So you must have some great stories about people that have learnt more about what you're doing and sort of, well, you said that one before with the lady with the young babies, but like, do you get calls from people going, oh my God, like my life is like, I've done this and it's a month later and I'm feeling better? And
yeah, I do. I mean, I'm more focused on people that are working towards the longer term projects, but yeah, I definitely have had emails over the years from people that have, I had a guy that had read something about the EMF stuff and made it, I can't even remember what the connection was, but it had made him realise what was contributing to a significant health problem he was experiencing. It's like, I'm so grateful for this.
Yeah. Is there anything else you want to get across to people?
Well, I know a lot of your audience is builders, and something that I have realised, something that I think that I don't think any builders realise, but for me personally, I think builders have a more significant role to play in their clients' lives than the family doctor, because if your home's making you sick, there's not much that any healthcare professional can do until you're out of that home.
I'm glad you said that, because that takes me back to the question I just forgot. Hearing what you're talking about today, and I think I'm one of them, but I think there's probably a lot of people out there that feel like they're either constantly like they might be allergic to something, or they think they're an asthmatic, or they think they get allergies, but it's actually the house.
Definitely. I think every known health condition and symptom that there is an environmental link.
Yeah. Yeah, it's insane, isn't it? So, look, you've inspired me. I'm definitely going to, do some more homework on this and look into it more. And I really encourage all of the people listening, whether you're a homeowner, a builder, a tradie or whatever, like this is important stuff, isn't it? And if we want to, I guess, continue to have healthy lives, it's really important stuff, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it's something that, well, I believe as a builder, it's me knowing about this now. Like I have I need to give my clients these options, don't I?
Yeah. Imagine how good you feel when you hand over the keys, knowing that, they've had the opportunity to be informed and make better choices for themselves.
Yeah, like even just sitting here thinking, like talking to you, like my brain's just going nuts as we're talking. So, if I do your course, do I get those checklists?
If you do the course and then at the end of it you want to implement the blueprint. So I'm working with a builder who's just been through the mastermind and now he's building his own home, and so I'm going through that with him to then look at rolling out in his business.
Yeah, because I feel like there needs to be, like, for me, I would develop something that, like, in the early stages, it's like a tick list that I can basically say to the client, so are you aware of this? Do you know this? Here's some options. Do you want to do it? Yes, yes, yes. No, no, no. And then it just starts getting worked into the design. Yeah,
definitely. And what I'll do off the back of this project is come up with, say, 3 options. So this is just what should be standard in every build that can be implemented, not much extra cost. It's just awareness in the design stage. And then, okay, there's the client that wants, to go that step further. And then there's like the top option so that people have that choice.
Yeah. Look, I know there's going to be a lot of builders listening that are going to be interested, but they're going to be worried about timeframes and finances and all those types of things, because that's my concern.
Yeah.
Because straight away I'm just sitting here thinking, like, for my clients, if we've got to be getting the slab and the timber to a certain moisture rating, they're paying interest on home loan repayments and all those types of things, and because you wouldn't know the period, because the period's always going to change depending on if it's wet weather, what area you're building in, like all those types of things.
I'd need to check this, but I know the builders that have started using the dehumidifiers, I don't think it's added to their construction timeframes. If you were just going to try and let this slab cure on its own, it might. But having the dehumidifier would help.
So it's something you just let go, and then when you basically got it enclosed, you bring the dehumidifier in and just let it do its thing while you're continuing to do the work.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Interesting. Now, look, Zara, I really appreciate you coming in today. It's my mind's definitely spinning. I'm sure a lot of our listeners are, but I do. Look, I'm pretty sure we'll end up having you back for a second round, because I'm definitely going to do some homework on this and get more educated so that we can continue the conversation. And it's definitely something that I'm going to talk to my team about and definitely educate our clients, so give them the option. So really appreciate you taking the long drive and coming up today.
Thank you so much for having me here, and really helping raise awareness about the importance of healthy homes. I really, really appreciate it.
Yeah, no, well, look, as usual, if you like, comment, subscribe. We'll put some links up to Zara's website and Instagram and stuff, and make sure you get behind her and support what she's doing.
Are you ready to build smarter, live better, and enjoy life? Then head over to livelightbuild.com/elevate to get started.
Everything discussed during the Level Up podcast with me, Dwayne Pearce, is based solely on my own personal experiences and those experiences of my guests. The information, opinions and recommendations presented in this podcast are for general information only, and any reliance on the information provided in this podcast is done at your own risk. We recommend that you obtain your own professional advice in respect to the topics discussed during this podcast.